going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Wrestling Heroes and Insiders podcast, aka The Whip Show. You know what it is. I am Deshaun Whip Dog Whipple, and I'm here with my tag team partner. No, he's not here today. Daryl, where are you, man? Where are you? You left me by myself. What are you doing? All right, I can do this, man. I can do this. All right. Well, today we have a great guest on this show, guys. So make sure you hang out with us. You know we're here each and every week on all the podcast platforms, Spotify, Anchor, YouTube. You can go get your Flintstones television. Watch it on that. It doesn't matter. We're everywhere. But today we got a great guy. I'm going to just call his name out. He's Goldberg. Goldberg. Well, not that one. Not that one. But we do have Goldberg here. He is the owner of New England Championship Wrestling. So everybody listening and is going to watch this video, can you give it up for Mr. Sheldon Goldberg? How you doing today, sir?
All right. How are you? You got more energy than both of us.
Man, I try to bring the fire, man.
You don't need a tag team partner. You're burning for two right there.
You heard that? Hey, Daryl, he's trying to get rid of you, man.
No.
No, man, but once again, thank you for coming on the show, man. This is going to be fun. I've heard a lot about you, and I got a lot of stuff. And normally, I don't even have notes. But I was looking at your resume. Wow. We're gonna talk about some great stuff with you, man.
Sounds good.
Well, first things first, how are you doing, man? I mean, Boston, you're still in Boston, correct?
I'm still in Boston, yeah. We're doing okay, given the pandemic and not being able to run live shows at the moment, given all that, we're doing okay. We got a lot of stuff that we're working on doing here, so I'm looking at a bright future. So
sounds good. Because if I'm not mistaken, you've been part of wrestling for many, many years, man.
Yeah, they're ready to give you the gold watch and the AARP card, I think.
Well, I want to touch base on that first. Where did your love for pro wrestling begin? Because all of us have a story.
I'll tell you, my mother's mother was the only wrestling fan in the family. And I guess I must have gotten it from her because she loved the ladies and the midgets. That was her deal. She died when I was very young, so I don't really have too many memories of her. I do have memories of her, but not too many. I don't have any wrestling memories of her or memories associated with pro wrestling. But, as I got to be around 12, 13, I, started to get into it, was a fan for all these years. And, by happenstance, I happened to get involved in it. And here I am today, many years later, and feeling very fortunate that I was able to get into it.
Sounds good. Now, I don't want to try to test your age, but I got to find out. You said about 13 or 14. So what year would this take us? Because I want to kind of know where were you at and what was your favorite wrestlers and things of that nature.
Well, I grew up in the 60s.
Okay.
I was born in 1956. That makes me 64.
And you look amazing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Camera tricks.
Okay. See,
as soon as this goes off, I just melt into the floor. But anyway, no. So I grew up with San Martino. I grew up in this area, so it's the WWWF territory with Bruno San Martino and Victor Rivera and Pedro Morales and Haystack Calhoun and Gorilla Monsoon and Killer Kowalski lived in the area, and I got to know him pretty well. So, but my actual entree into wrestling was a local promoter here by the name of Abe Ford. Now, that's a name that a lot of people don't know, but Abe Ford used to promote Boston for Vince McMahon Sr. He promoted Boston from like the late 60s through the early 70s. And then the two of them had a big falling out, and the local promotion went to somebody else. So it went to a guy named Bobby Harmon, who wrestled this beautiful Bobby, and Ernie Roth, who was the Grand Wizard. They became the Boston promoters. after Abe Ford got out of the picture. But yes, so I grew up in this area. I've been here pretty much all my life, and as time went on, I had no idea I was going to get involved in wrestling. But I had a career in the entertainment business. I worked in theater. I did publicity for Broadway shows on tour. I produced plays. I did a bunch of stuff like that. And in the Boston Theater District, right near where I worked on the same block, was the office of Abe Ford. And I used to see him going to and from and, getting a sandwich in Brigham's, which was an ice cream shop, a chain of ice cream shops. He used to be in there, and I'd see him every once in a while, and I'd offer him free tickets to whatever plays were coming in. And I got to be friendly with him. And while we weren't especially close business-wise, he had a very close relationship with the late Killer Kowalski. They promoted shows together after Abe lost his connection with Vince McMahon Sr. Abe promoted spot shows with Kowalski. So
now I gotta ask you, with that being said, though, you worked in entertainment previously, and you did theater, you did music. Why do you, and we worked in radio? Why do you think it's such a direct correlation between that side of entertainment and so many professional wrestlers?
Because wrestling encompasses all of those things. The broadcast element, the live performance elements, the way the live events are promoted. There are certain similarities, renting buildings and all that sort of thing. So there's a lot of a lot of skills that I learned in the live entertainment, the theater end of things, I was able to carry over into promoting professional wrestling.
Now, before we even go into talking about promoting professional wrestling, there's one thing that happens to a lot of us as we become young men growing up, and a lot of wrestling fans when we're younger, we walk away from it because it's not the end thing to do as we get older. How were you received in the Boston market? Did your family, what did they say when you're like, man, I love wrestling. I'm 19 years old. I'm 20 years old. I want to start promoting. What did your family say? What did your friends say?
They didn't say anything. But see, by the time I started promoting wrestling, I already had a career. I had already been promoting live events and producing plays and that sort of thing. So it was just a natural extension of what I had been doing before. So they were, I think they would preferred I did something else, but my family was pretty supportive of me. I never really got any you shouldn't be doing that sort of thing. They were supportive of anything that I put my mind to doing. So, and I'm grateful for that.
That's good to hear. Yeah. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
See, so much better than me. Many years ago, I was an independent pro wrestler, and I had a book sent to my home called The Inside Secrets of How You Can Get Into the World of Pro Wrestling. My mother saw that book in the mail. She looked at me and said, I know you're not serious. If it was up to her, she'd have tore it up.
Who wrote that book? Was that Percy Pringle's book?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. See, you're also a historian, I can tell.
Yes. Well, I know only because I've been around long enough.
Okay.
Yeah. You hang around long enough, you become history. So
now I'm looking at your timeline. You've worked also with some of the biggest wrestling magazines there ever were. You worked for Wild Wrestling Magazine, and I actually had a subscription to them back in the day. I loved Wild Wrestling Magazine. Because they were like the large magazine compared to all of them. Big, colorful pictures. Now, was that prior to you started to promote wrestling, or was that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was working with a local promotion here that was run by the late Boston bad boy Tony Rumble.
Okay.
And that was the Century Wrestling Alliance, which later became NWA New England. And Tony Rumble was very good friends. Tony Rumble was big on wrestling magazines. He was very good friends with George Napolitano and Bill Apter. And Tony introduced me to Bill Apter and recommended me to write for that magazine because I had appeared on a show for the A&E network called The Unreal Story of Professional Wrestling, and then later an episode of Biography on Andre the Giant. So because I had appeared on those things, and Tony knew Bill, and Tony had mentioned me to Bill, and they were starting up Wow Magazine. He said, hey, this guy would be pretty good. He writes the programs for me. He does the posters. He'd be good. And so Bill reached out to me and invited me to come and write for the magazines. So that was a thrill for me because I had, collected wrestling magazines as a kid. I think kids in the 60s and 70s, your entree into pro wrestling, if you weren't in it and didn't have family in it, were the wrestling magazines. So, stacks of magazines were sitting around my house for decades, So to be writing for Bill Apter, of all people, I mean, what a thrill that was.
Absolutely.
Bill's a great guy, terrific guy.
Yes, OneWrestling.com was one of the greatest pro wrestling websites ever, as we all know.
Yes, sir.
Now, with that being said, you wrote the magazines. At this time, wrestling still is a little bit of kayfabe. They're still kind of carny. Was it hard for you to break in? Were the guys receptive to you, or did they receive you as an outsider? I know you're promoting, but how did they receive you?
A few received me like an outsider, but not so much because, by that time I was already an adult. It wasn't like I was a teenager or a young kid. I was in my 30s already, when I started getting involved in promotions and so forth, working with Tony Rumble. So, I was well an adult. People took me seriously just because I looked like a serious person. So
okay.
Yeah.
I can see that. I can see that looking at the video. And if you guys are watching this video, he's a man about his business, I can tell. But I want to touch base on this A&E thing. Now, how did that come about? How did they even connect with you to bring you on the program?
I used to publish a newsletter for collectors of wrestling memorabilia called Matt Marketplace, and that's how they found me. They found out about me on either online or in a magazine or something, and they reached out to me and asked if I could help them find old footage and find different old wrestlers. I was also on the board of directors of the Cauliflower Alley Club at the time, so I had a direct connection to a lot of people. And when they described the project to me, the first thing I asked them is this something that you're going to be making fun of it? Or is it something that, oh, no. They said, we're here to do basically a 2-hour history of pro wrestling. And since at the time that had never been done before on network television, I said, this would be really a cool thing that deserves to be done, especially because I knew a lot of these old timers through the Cauliflower Alley Club. And I always felt that it was a shame that people didn't recognize these guys who had sold out stadiums all over the country and drew just as many fans as baseball, football, hockey, but didn't get the recognition because the wrestling business didn't prize its history as much as other mainstream sports. So just as somebody who loves wrestling and got to love some of these older guys, I wanted to see it done. So I did it with no financial motive in mind. I just wanted to help these guys accomplish something. And I was pretty happy with the result.
Nice. Now you talked about being kind of close to Killer Kowalski and some of the other greats. We have a question that we always ask one of our segments, and normally I wait to the end, but I want to know right now.
Sure.
It's called the mark out moment. Now, was there ever a moment that now you're entrenched in the business? You've met guys, you're writing, you've been part of A&E, you even promoted, but have you met one guy that you were like, wow, I can't believe I'm standing next to this guy. I can't believe I'm in the room with this guy.
I'll tell you exactly what that moment was. I told you I was on the board of directors of the Cauliflower Alley Club. We did a reunion in Springfield, Massachusetts. This was in the late 90s. I want to say it was about 1998, 1999. I don't remember exactly. This is what happens when you get old. You don't remember things exactly. But anyway, we had a board meeting, and this was the first time that anyone from the WWF had come to one of our meetings. There was a lot of the old timers at that point in time hated the WWF. They hated Vince McMahon. They thought he ruined the business. They just didn't, they kind of really poo-pooed the guy. And me being a younger person, I'm saying, listen, he's the business. You can't poo-poo the guy because, the world changes, things go on, and he's not going to go away. So let's invite him and make him a part of it rather than reject him and cause bad feelings. And so I decided that with consulting the board members, who would we like to get to come to one of our banquets? So I picked two guys that I thought they wouldn't be able to say no to, because we weren't going to ask for Hulk Hogan or The Undertaker or anybody like that. I asked them to send Gorilla Monsoon and Arnold Skaaland, both of whom were old-time guys who fit the profile. We were going to give awards to both of them and so forth. And I sent a letter to Vince McMahon's office and asked if we could invite these two people to come to our event. And they replied yes. So they both came, and Pedro Morales came, a bunch of other people were there, and they had the greatest time ever. And there's Lou Thez and everybody else. So we have a board meeting, and we invited Gorilla to sit on the board meeting. And the other person who came to that, who I'd met for the first time and would get to know him a bit afterwards, was Gordon Solie. So I'm sitting in this board meeting. There's Lou Thez and Dick Beyer, the Destroyer, and I'm sitting right between Gorilla Monsoon and Gordon Solie. And I'm like, who invited me, Yeah. What am I doing here? Somebody pinched me. I must be dreaming. So, and it was just such a cool thing to sit there with those guys and get a chance to talk to Gordon Solie and get a chance to talk to Monsoon. What a great guy. Both of them were just terrific human beings. Gordon, I got to know a little bit better because I was involved in a project he was a part of. But man, what a thrill for me.
Man, that's amazing. Two of the biggest legends ever, Gordon Solie.
Yeah.
The voice of pro wrestling for many years. Speaking of him, there's a video going around that I just happened to see with him and Vince McMahon commentating or announcing some event. And I think they're saying it's around circa 74, 78, but no one seems to know the exact event. Gary Michael Capetta posted the picture, but nobody can pick. So if you get a chance, do you know anything about that? Or if you
I don't know a thing about that.
It was Vince McMahon, and this is prior to WWF going on TBS for that 6-week period or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, it was him and Gordon Solie, but nobody has the full video.
Back in the day, there was a lot of byplay between offices, especially the Florida office in New York, because Eddie Graham and Vince McMahon Sr. were very close, and they relied on each other quite a bit. So that it wouldn't shock me that the two of them had gotten together at some one time or another.
Nice.
But it was really a cool moment to sit there and listen to Gorilla talk to Gordon Solie, because you wouldn't have put the two of them together as being in the same place at the same time. And they're sitting there talking shop, and Gorilla saying, "Oh, Gordon, it's so great to hear you on the air. I'm so glad that you brought you back," and blah blah blah. And it was just so cool to listen to these two guys talk shop. The other thing that was really cool was in the bar later, listening to Gordon Solie swear like a sailor.
What?
Oh yeah.
Yo, that's an exclusive. Y'all heard that, Gordon Solie.
Let me tell you. We got him in the bar, and of course, Gordon liked to drink. I don't think that's a big secret,
right?
But you got a couple of drinks in Gordon, and out came the expletives. So, which was pretty fun. It was like listening to Walter Cronkite cuss you out. It just really was funny. So.
Nice, man. Nice. Now, you touched on a little bit, but I do want, just in case people don't know, well, my response question is the Cauliflower Alley Club. Right. I know we missed it last year because of the pandemic.
Right.
Do they think they're going to be able to do it this year? And also, if people don't know what it is, could you kind of just give them a brief explanation?
Right. Cauliflower Alley Club is a fellowship organization for active and retired boxers, wrestlers, and people associated with the fight game. It's kind of evolved a little bit. There's a lot more fan participation than there ever was. Originally, it wasn't for fans at all. It was just for people in the business, in the fight game. And Brian Blair is the president now. I haven't been involved in a number of years, but I'm looking forward to going to my first reunion in quite a while. They've postponed it twice. They're planning on doing this in September in Las Vegas. And I'm looking forward to being there. I'm looking forward to it. I miss it.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Now I want to, you're going to be like, man, this guy bounces around, but that's just how my mind works. It bounces around.
No worries.
I want to go into talking about New England Championship Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So what directly connected you to either starting it, and tell me some of the guys we should be looking for in New England Championship Wrestling.
All right. So I was very close with the late Boston Bad Boy Tony Rumble. Mm-hmm. He had a company called Century Wrestling Alliance that became NWA New England. So November of 1999, Tony dies suddenly. Dies of a massive heart attack. And in his wake, the company fell into, it wasn't bad hands. I mean, there were guys that I was involved with and I liked, but I they weren't going to do the business justice. They just weren't business people. They just, some people can do it and some people can't, Sometimes a business run by wrestlers is not run very well, unfortunately. So I thought to myself, what do I want to do? And one of my friends who was also involved in that company had said, why don't you start something of your own? And I thought about it and I thought about it. I said, you know what? If I don't try to do this, I'll always regret it. And so I started New England Championship Wrestling. I was a big believer, because of Tony, in the idea of local wrestling, a local wrestling promotion, doing local wrestling with local guys, and maybe opening up a little bit. And we'll talk about that as we go on. But I just felt that it was something that was needed because, at that time in the year 2000, there was a WWF, a WCW, an ECW. I think Smoky Mountain may still have been around, may have been on its last legs. But, other than that, there was no, independent wrestling as we know it now was in its infancy. The territories had pretty much just gone out of business about 5 years before. And, there was nothing taking its place. There was a lot of holes in the industry. So, whereas in the old days of wrestling, you had, the Worldwide Wrestling Federation office that ran the big buildings, but they also ran the small buildings. They ran the high schools, they ran smaller buildings. That, when they blew up and became a national thing, that disappeared because it wasn't worth their time to do those kinds of small venues anymore. And that's where independent wrestling filled the void. So I thought there was a niche there. Working with Tony, we thought there was a niche there. He was pretty successful doing things in his way. And, we knew the business was changing. Just one thing sort of fell into place after another, and off we went. Nice.
And I'm looking at the roster of guys. You've had some name guys come through there before they became superstars. Could you let people know some of the great guys that's come through?
Oh, yeah. Everybody from, John Cena, Kofi Kingston, Finn Balor, when he was Prince Fergal Devitt. We gave the future Sasha Banks her first professional match. That's in a series that we have, our 20th anniversary series. It's on YouTube. Eddie Edwards, lots of folks. So, Ivar of the Viking Raiders. So lots of folks over the years. We were very, very fortunate.
I see that, man. I was going back watching some tape, and I was like, man, this is amazing. But with that being said, my question is this: could you tell that those guys had something special as they were coming through?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know that it's funny. I often would consider myself to be just being in the right place at the right time. You know, this era of NECW came at a time when this was just around Kowalski's final years before he unfortunately passed away. And there was just a generation of guys that were great athletes, that were taking wrestling seriously, that were motivated to come out and work and do good stuff, and who were looking for a place to do angles and programs and not just do spot shows. Because basically in New England, that's what independent wrestling was before we came along. It was just spot shows. There were no angles, there were no programs. You know, Kowalski used to do what we call in the industry sold shows. What a sold show is when a group or an organization buys the event for a set price. And usually it's a fundraiser for a fire department or a police department or whatever. And they're once a year events. Like the Springfield Fire Department's annual fundraiser, it's a wrestling show, or the Plainville Police Fire Department or whatever it is, the fire auxiliary, they have a wrestling show is a once a year thing. So it's not like you were going back month after month and you needed angles and programs to, get people back in the building. The formula for those shows was a simple one. They got one or two name guys, either from the WWF office or guys who are off contract, and the rest of the card would be his students. And that was very effective for a long time. But then came the Attitude Era. Then the business started to blow up. And so you didn't have the WWF offering their talent for third-party deals anymore. You couldn't get that talent. WCW had blown up, and a lot of guys were not available because they were under contract now. So there needed to be a place where guys could go and work and not just have matches, but do angles and have programs and cut promos and have something that resembled television. And that's what we sought to do. So we were just trying to fill a niche. We wanted to be on TV. We couldn't afford to be on TV. So we put shows online.
Nice. I get it. And that's the one good thing I'm really enjoying about independent wrestling now. If you have Roku TV, Pluto, and all that, they have dedicated wrestling channels for independent pro wrestling. And as you stated, back in the day, and back when I started, that kind of was how it was previously. They just had wrestling show, and that was it. Guys didn't get to really do their character. They didn't get to understand building stories. But now you have that. Because you guys have, if I'm not mistaken, like you said, a YouTube channel. And you're keeping stuff consistent. I really do like that.
Right.
But with that being said, 20 years in the game. A lot of places, as you know, don't make it past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why do you think you guys was able to hold on for 20 years and still keep going?
Pure stubbornness. I tell people you get less time for a lot of felonies. So, but now I consider myself to be very lucky. We had great talent. We never tried to be anything more than what we were. And we just kept pushing. And I'm looking now towards building this to go beyond me. So what I'm looking to do at this point is evolve the company into more of a full-time operation. We're trying to get a building of our own, set up specifically to produce television and run weekly shows and run like a weekly territory. So, we're looking forward to doing that and trying to change the game by changing the economics of what we're doing. Instead of being a once a month or a couple of times a month show, we'll be running several times a week. So nice. And really giving guys and girls a platform to, basically make it a job, a decent part-time job.
Nice.
And, so that they can springboard their careers and, have something to build a business on.
I like it. Now, as you know, with the pandemic and everything, the major promotions had to do the no fan shows, Thunderdome, Impact, and all that, WWE, and all that stuff. What are you guys doing to keep people engaged in a time like this?
Well, we couldn't run any new live events. So what we did, this is our 20th year. So what we did was we just went into the archives and said, let's just, put our older stuff out there. It's our 20th anniversary. Let's show people what we've been about for all these years and give people the idea that here we've done all this. So we've got this great history and this great legacy, and work towards building our business for the future to continue all that. So we've been sort of looking backwards to look forwards, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Now, I want to ask you, and that's a great answer right there, but we're talking about your promotion, independent wrestling as a whole.
Right.
Right now, independent wrestling is being showcased more than ever. Why do you think people are receiving it a lot more now? Because I remember the days where an independent show had 12 people in the audience and you couldn't get fans to pay attention. And now they're getting mad at WWE for not getting the guy that works out of Boston or works out of Memphis. Well, you know what I mean?
Everything, the advent of NXT has changed a lot of things. Basically, what it's changed is the idea of that there is independent wrestling. Independent wrestling used to be a dirty word around WWF. Independence. Oh, well, this guy's an independent guy. They looked down at it like it was something terrible. But the reality is, look at everybody that they've signed. Virtually everyone that they have signed over the last 5 or 10 years is former independent guy. That's how that's their point of entry, and without independent wrestling, there is no wrestling. There's no business at all if you don't have that. So what's happened now is the pendulum sort of swung the other way. People have really embraced independent wrestling, and the business itself is maturing in a rapid way. We now have things like this independent wrestling TV that a group of promotions got together and they're streaming their content. We've got these independent companies that fly in people from all over the country, and these super indies is what I like to call them. That was started by Ring of Honor. So, people don't look at independent wrestling as, oh, well, who are those guys? A bunch of jabronis or whatever. We used to get that all the time. Oh, who are these jabronis? These are the guys that lay down for everybody every week on TV. No.
Right.
Now,
right.
I had a conversation with a guy just last week who used to come and razz us all the time about that. And then he said to me, he goes, I saved all my programs. And I go through those programs now, and who do I see? John Cena, Frankie Kazarian, Bobby Fish, Doug Williams. He goes, it's like a who's who. He said, I can't believe I used to sit there and crap on those guys, telling them they were losers and whatever. He was just thought about it after he saw our 20th anniversary series, which I'll talk about in a bit. And he goes, my God, he goes, I owe you an apology for all that. He still came and bought his ticket. That was enough of an apology for me. As long as he paid for his tickets, I don't care what he said. But
hey, butts and seats, baby, butts and seats.
That's what it's all about. Yeah. But he had the same reaction that a lot of people have. Look at how cool was that to be on the ground floor of that. So I'm like I say, I consider myself to be very fortunate. We put out a series of 20 matches on YouTube called the NECW 20th Anniversary Collection. If you go to our YouTube channel, which is NECW Wrestling on YouTube, it's the NECW 20th Anniversary Collection. It's 20 matches that sum up 20 years of NECW. And you'll see 17 major stars before they became famous in that series. And I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of all the folks that I've had the chance to work with over the years, the people that have worked with me to put on these shows and so forth. But, you know, I think it's not just a statement for us and about us. It's a statement about independent wrestling in general. That this has been the breeding ground that's kind of kept wrestling in business all these many years. So it's pretty cool to take a look back at it.
Nice. And what I'm picking up by talking to you right now is I really can tell you're a great promoter, because you're not talking like, oh, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to beat WWE. I'm going to beat AEW. You're talking about building your brand and building New England and building independent wrestling. Because as you know, and I kind of don't like this word, but we use it a lot, marks. And sometimes marks start promoting and their only thought process is throw a bunch of money and they're going to one day beat the WWE. And that should never be your
goal. Let me tell you the truth. Let me tell you the God's honest. I didn't have a lot of money. Okay. The guy I was in business with died suddenly. I didn't have a lot of money. I just wanted to stay in. I felt I had something to contribute. I felt that I had skills that could work to give people the platform that they needed to advance themselves. I thought that it would be a cool thing for fans. It's the same thing. What we were to pro wrestling was what off-Broadway is to Broadway. It's just a smaller, it's just a more intimate version. You know, it's still a ring. It's still matches. It's still good versus evil. It's still, you know, two people and who's going to win. You know, it's the same thing, minus the lights and the pyro and the whatever. But, you know, it is hard. It's the same thing. So we weren't trying to beat anybody or put anybody out of business, or, you know, we were just trying to give local guys an opportunity. We knew that they were going to stay with us forever, you know, but, you know, we were, as I say, we were fortunate. And I think the proof is in the pudding, so to speak.
Yeah. And fans, this is real what he's saying. Matter of fact, I don't know if you watched it yet, Sheldon, but the show Young Rock, there was there was one part where Young Rock took his new girlfriend to see his dad wrestle. And she assumed it was going to be larger than life in Madison Square Garden. She gets there, it's like, oh my God, what is this? It's in a flea market. But by the end of the match, she was just as engaged in that match as she would have been, because she was right there. So I think that kind of sums up people coming to independent wrestling. It's still a ring. It's still the battle of good versus evil, face versus heel, great characters, great stories, and you're actually closer because it's more intimate.
Yeah.
You might never get John Cena's autograph without paying $100 at an autograph signing.
Right.
If you go to an independent show, you could actually might meet this guy, take a picture with him, and actually get to chop it up and talk with the guy, man.
Yeah. What are your chances when you go to a WWE event in Madison Square Garden? Where are you from now?
I'm from the Detroit area.
Okay. So Joe Louis Arena, what are your chances of going and shaking hands with, you know, Drew McIntyre or whatever? You get about as much chance as being struck by lightning.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you're not ever getting that close, you know, unless you want to pay big money and get one of those fan experience deals that they have. But, you know, that's the beauty of independent wrestling. Guys selling their merch or just hanging around and, you know, talking to the fans afterwards. Yeah.
Speaking of having some of those guys before they became superstars, right now, even on the WWE network, they actually have a section for independent wrestling and for progress. And WWE's kind of going back to trying to send a little money to some of these indie shows to get their library.
They ain't sending me any. So.
I was about to ask you, have they reached out yet, man? Or...
I'm waiting. My hand is out.
Now, is that true, or are you working me right now, man? Is this a shoot, or are you working me, man?
No. I'm not working at all. They're not sending me any money. I wish they would.
You might have to dabble some. You might have to dabble some of those videos in front of their face again, like, hey, I got this.
You know, it's funny. When we were going to put this 20th anniversary series, I said, how do I want to do this? Do I want to produce a DVD? Do I want to save this? And I thought to myself, you know, the best way for me to do this is I want to give everybody a chance to see this because everybody should see it.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to have a paywall. I don't want to have, you know, I don't want to be sitting here burning DVDs to ship out to people. And, you know, I don't have time for all that, unfortunately. But, you know, I just want people to see what we've done. To, you know, I want to be able to tell our story because we've got a lot more story left to tell. And to do that the way I want to do it, I'm going to need some resources. And the best way to get those resources is just to show people, hey, this is what we're capable of. So there you have it. I just wanted to share it with people, you know? I didn't want it to be a hustle. That's the other thing about independent wrestling. It's not a hustle.
Yeah.
You know, it's cheap tickets. It's free parking. It's an up-close experience. And you can bring your family and afford to do it. And, you know, I think that's pretty cool. I think, you know, sports and entertainment are missing that.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I got to go here. We've been shining up pro wrestling from the beginning of this interview. However, being a promoter is not easy.
No.
Could you tell me a story that promoting was a little bit tougher than you expected it to be? I'll word it that way. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, anytime you're dealing with human beings, any ego human beings in an ego business, it's not easy. We've had all kinds of situations where, you know, people were pushing them and they're getting over and they're starting to succeed. And in the middle of everything, they got to leave town for some reason. One guy, I won't mention his name, his baby mama was chasing him for dough. And he was in the middle of a big push. And he walks in the middle of this big push. And we've done all this stuff with this guy and put him on TV and got to leave town. See ya. This is my last night.
Wow.
What? Stuff like that happens. You know, there's oftentimes people that do not believe that their push or their success has anything to do with the promotion, that it has to do with just them. And the truth of the matter is it's a lot of people. It's not just me. It's not them. It's, you know, it's who gave you the platform. It's who worked with you to make you look good. So, I mean, it's a lot of things. Wrestling's it's a team sport in a lot of ways. It's individual, but it isn't. It's individual, but it ain't solitaire.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Now, since we're talking about Boston, I got to bring up a name. He was a previous guest on the show, and I think you said you know the man. John Cena Sr. Tell me about your connection to him, man.
He brought his son to wrestle for us. In fact, when he wrestled for us, and it's in the 20th anniversary collection, he was home to get his stuff because he was moving to Louisville from California. And he was getting some of his stuff to move to Louisville to go to Ohio Valley Wrestling. And his family had never seen him wrestle. And John, a mutual friend of ours, arranged the match. And we had him wrestle Frankie Kazarian because Frankie had ties to Boston. He was close with John. They were here together. They were both going to Louisville. And they were tag team partners at one point in time in UPW in California. And so John wanted to wrestle in front of his family. And we happened to have a show when he was there. And we gave him that opportunity to just wrestle Frankie. And John Cena Sr. basically bought out most of the house. They bought like 80 or 90 tickets.
Seriously?
His friends and family could come and see it. Yeah, John's a great guy.
Yeah, he is.
John is a great guy.
An amazing guy. Amazing dude.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing dude, man.
Yeah.
Now, I want to go into this next segment that we have because you've talked about being a promoter, but you've also worked in radio and things of that nature.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You haven't talked about you wanting to be in front of the camera, though. So our next segment is called Book Yourself. That's where if you could take Sheldon Goldberg right now in 2021, and even if it's just a fantasy booking, where would you put yourself to be the most successful in the world of professional wrestling? Anywhere in the world of professional wrestling.
No, I'd be behind the scenes. My upfront days are over. I'm too old and too ugly now. You know? I lost a long time ago. So, I was the only reason that I did the announcing and the only reason that I appeared in public was because we needed somebody who would put it across, and who was going to do that more than me? My life was on the line, in doing this. If you got to get something over, I got to get it over, and it's my business. I'm getting it over because it's my money. So, I got to do it. So, but no, I want to mentor other people. I'm here to showcase talent, not necessarily my own. My own is the showcasing of that talent. That's my talent. So I don't need to be seen, maybe heard every now and then, but even then, I want to bring some other guys along. I'm here to give people opportunities.
So we're not going to see you come win the title at the first show when you guys come back from pandemic, right?
No. You're not
going over. Okay.
No 24/7 title, no hardcore title, no softcore title, no parboiled title. No way.
Okay.
I'm too brittle at this age. I ain't pumping for nothing.
Now, I know you've seen amazing
guys. I'm like Humpty
guys.
Dumpty, brother.
Oh, man. I know you, like I said, you've seen some amazing guys come through. What do you look for in a young man? A young man or young woman that's 18, 19. They come up to you, they see you out, they've seen your shows, they say, I want to be in the business. What do you tell them, and what are you looking for?
Tell you got to be trained by somebody reputable. We never had a school, but that's going to change in the future. We are going to open a school at some point. I look for people who are athletic and people who are dedicated and people who are honest. You got to be honest. Wrestling's not for everybody. There's guys, it's okay to be the guy who wants to be a weekend warrior if you want to do it correctly. That's another thing. There were a lot of guys in my experience who weren't WWE material. You know what I mean? Yeah, they were good wrestlers, they were good athletes, but they didn't want to be on the road 300 days a year. Right. They didn't want to go to that next step for whatever personal reasons. Maybe they had families, they had jobs, they had lives. They had things that they liked to do in their life that, they liked to wrestle, but they didn't want to do it as a full-time profession. So, there should be a place for people like that. There's a lot of guys that bring something to the table, and, they deserve a spot too. But the real answer to your question is it's athleticism, desire, and coachability. Got to be coachable.
Good answers.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to name some of the names that we should be looking out for coming up that you guys got working with you right now.
We haven't run too many shows of late, so that's a hard question to answer.
Okay.
Guy who was our champion is Toto Loco. He's been around for a long time. He's another one of those guys that hasn't cracked the big time, has the ability, but he's a good athlete, a really, really good athlete. And he's been a good champion for us. And it's been a dependable part of our company. There's a lot of kids locally. There are a couple of schools around here that are churning out some decent people. Ask me that question in 6 or 8 months. I'll give you a better answer.
Okay. Now, how open is Boston right now as far as the pandemic?
It's not open at all. Can't run a live event. Yeah.
At all. Okay. Yeah. So that's good to know you're not doing those secret shows like some of these promoters that are doing around the country, man.
I got to tell you, I much as I would love to put on a show of some kind, any kind, I'd rather do it right than do it wrong. You know, I don't want to do shows that put anybody at risk, not the talent, not the fans, nobody. I don't want to do shows with 25% capacity or 50% capacity. I want to do a show where I can fill that building up with people.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, man. And because I'm going to say something here, and fans, listen, this is not Sheldon, this is me talking. Mm-hmm. Please be safe. I've seen some pictures from some independent shows around the country, and these guys aren't wearing any masks. They're right next to each other, or they're doing shows or like, buy the ticket and we'll give you a secret location. That's not right. And if something happens,
no.
You know, so fans, I know you love wrestling, but please be safe and make conscious, smart decisions where you go. I know we want to be back out there,
right?
But come on, you know.
Much as I love wrestling, and I do, I don't love it enough to make people sick over it.
Exactly. Well, Sheldon, I don't want to keep you all night. I definitely could, because I'm loving the conversation.
Likewise, it's been a real pleasure.
But we do have a segment that we like to close out with. And matter of fact, after we finish, don't hang up just yet. But we have a segment called Ring the Bell. Well, Ring the Bell is I give you 60 seconds to talk about anything. You can promote what you got coming up. You can give some inspirational words. You can talk about what you got going and go eat. I don't know. Whatever you want to talk about.
All right.
But you got 60 seconds. Sheldon Goldberg, owner of New England Championship Wrestling, would you ring the bell?
All right. Well, check us out online, NECW.TV on the internet, NECW Wrestling on Facebook, at NECW on Twitter. Check us out on YouTube, NECW Wrestling, the 20th anniversary collection. Support your local independent wrestling. Support your local independent wrestlers. Keep loving wrestling. It's a great time to be a wrestling fan. Whatever wrestling you like, love it, support it, keep going with it. And I thank God every day for the opportunity to do what I've been able to do. And I thank you for being fans. Keep being fans. Thank you for the opportunity to come on here tonight.
For sure. And now you just made me think of my last question, which I thought I already did. But my last question is this. You just said, love what you love. What do you think about fans that feel like they have to choose WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, independent wrestling, not realizing we've been blessed to have enough wrestling to watch wrestling all day? Because it's not just the network. We got Fight TV, Independent Wrestling TV, Impact has their own thing, AEW has their thing, Pluto TV, Roku. But why do you think fans feel like they have to decide like it's a battle?
I don't know why fans think they have to decide, but hey, you know what? If you have passion for something and you love it, that's great. There's no wrong answer. You know, there's no wrong answer. If you love Ring of Honor and live and die by Ring of Honor, God bless you. If you love Impact Wrestling and that's what you want to watch all the time, God bless you. If you love AEW, God bless. If you're a WWE fan, great. It doesn't matter. You know, just love what you love. Support what you want to support. It's a free country. You got tons of choices. You know, I personally sample something else every now and then. Maybe you'll like it too. But hey, if you love your AEW, you love your WWE, you love your Lucha Libre, whatever, that's great. Go for it. I love it all, man. I really, really do.
Same here.
I wish I had more hours in the day so I could watch more of it.
I know my girl would kill me if I was watching wrestling 24/7.
I didn't have to work for a living. I'd be watching it all the time.
The Regeneration Podcast.
Yes, sir.
Talk to them about that right quick before you get out of here.
We started a podcast to go along with the 20th anniversary collection that talks about 20 years of New England Championship Wrestling and a lot of inside stuff. So it's kind of interesting, especially if you're a hardcore inside fan. We get into the matches in the 20th anniversary collection. We get into different issues that we've had to deal with over the years, a lot of inside stuff. And for those of you who are into independent wrestling history, it's a lot of fun to listen to.
And where can they listen to that as well?
They can listen to it on YouTube, on our YouTube channel.
You heard that.
New episode drops tomorrow.
You heard that. You guys heard it. Tomorrow. Well, once again, Sheldon, thank you for coming on the show. I had a great time, man. We made it
Likewise.
through without my partner. I didn't think I could do it. Now I'm going to go for a singles title because I don't need him. I don't need to be a tag champ anymore. No.
Well, bring me back when he's on so I can have a chance to meet him. So.
Most definitely, because he's a wrestling historian, so he would love to talk with you as well.
Likewise.
Well, guys, thank you very much. You had it, you've seen it, you've heard it. Another great edition of the Wrestling Heroes and Insiders podcast. Season 3 has been amazing, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger. You know what to do. Check us out on all podcast platforms. New episodes each and every Friday. Anchor, Spotify, Google, YouTube, anything. Check us out. Check out our old episodes. John Cena Sr., Vince Russo, Sonny Ono, Alpha Jr. Just watch everything. We're going to keep bringing you great wrestling talent and great wrestling heroes. So, with that being said, I am Deshaun Whipdog Whipple. My partner, Devastating Daryl Pace, will be back next week. And we had the owner of New England Championship Wrestling, Sheldon Goldberg. Check him out once again, NECW.TV. I'm out of here. And see you next week for the Wrestling Heroes and Insiders podcast, a.k.a. The Whip Show. Take care, guys.